My name's Ethan. I'm 27. And if you had told me 6 months ago that my girlfriend, Jenna, the girl I thought I might actually marry, would one day humiliate me in front of an entire restaurant, I probably would have laughed and called you paranoid. I mean, we had our problems, sure, but doesn't every couple? At least, that's what I told myself every time Jenna made one of her little comments. Comments that started out like jokes but didn't feel like jokes after a while. Like when she would introduce me to her friends and say, "This is Ethan. He's not rich, but he tries his best." Or when she would roll her eyes if I brought her flowers and say, you still think that stuff impresses me?" Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. We had been dating for about a year and a half when everything finally unraveled. Jenna came from a different world, one where birthdays meant lavish vacations, not just a dinner at your favorite local spot. She was used to first-class flights, designer handbags, expensive sushi on a random Tuesday night because life's too short for cheap food, as she put it once while flicking a menu away like it had personally offended her. Meanwhile, I was just a regular guy. I worked as a mechanical engineer. Solid salary, good benefits, but not exactly rolling in cash. I could afford a nice dinner. I couldn't afford to buy her Chanel because she felt sad today. But she stayed with me. She even said she loved me, though sometimes it felt like she loved having someone who adored her more than she actually loved me. Every time I questioned if I was enough, she'd laugh it off, say I was being so sensitive, and somehow make me feel like the bad guy for even asking. Fast forward to last Friday night. Jenna had been in one of her moods all day. You know the type: short texts, one-word replies, a million sighs and exaggerated yawns when you try to talk. I suggested we go out to dinner, maybe just to shake off whatever bad vibes were hanging in the air. She agreed, but her tone made it clear she was doing me a favor. We went to this cozy Italian restaurant downtown. Candlelight, soft music, the kind of place you pick when you're trying to show someone they matter. I even made reservations ahead of time, which, if you know me, is a big deal because I usually just wing it. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to pull her back from whatever invisible line she seemed so close to crossing lately. The night started off awkward. She spent most of the time scrolling through her phone, only glancing up to make snide little comments. "Did you really order the lasagna? It's so basic." Stuff like that. I laughed it off at first. Tried to steer the conversation back to safer topics. Asked about her week, her work, her friends. She answered in monosyllables, like she was bored out of her mind. Halfway through the meal, I realized she wasn't even trying anymore. She was just done. That's when it happened. I don't even remember what I said, probably something stupidly hopeful like, "Maybe we can plan a weekend trip soon, just the two of us." When she put her fork down with this dramatic little clink, leaned back in her chair, and let out the longest, loudest sigh. Then, without warning, she rolled her eyes so hard it looked painful, smirked, and said, loud enough that the tables around us could hear, "You're lucky I ever dated someone like me." Time froze for a second. People turned to look. Someone at the next table actually choked on their drink. I just stared at her, stunned, as she grabbed her purse, stood up, and tossed her napkin onto the table like it was some kind of declaration of war. "Oh," she added, as an afterthought, "by the way, you're paying for this." And then she was gone. Just like that. Clicking her heels all the way out the door like she was strutting down a catwalk. For a few minutes, I just sat there. The restaurant buzzed with whispered conversations, stolen glances. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the heavy knot forming in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to chase after her, demand answers, try to fix it, whatever it even was at that point. But then something strange happened. I didn't move. I just smiled. A real, genuine smile. The first one in months that wasn't forced or awkward or strained. I picked up my fork and finished my lasagna. Slowly, deliberately. Every bite tasted better than the last. It was like I was eating freedom itself. The waiter came by looking nervous, like maybe I was going to cause a scene. I just handed him my card, tipped well, and walked out into the crisp night air feeling lighter than I had in a long, long time. I went home, slept like a baby. And then this morning happened. I woke up to find 14 missed calls from Jenna. 14. There were texts too. Long, panicked ones. "Can we talk? I didn't mean it. You're overreacting. Please pick up. I made a mistake." Each message came faster than the last, like she could feel me slipping away and was scrambling to pull me back. I just stared at my phone for a while, feeling that same strange calm settle over me. The part of me that used to ache for her attention, her approval, her affection, it wasn't there anymore. It was gone, like smoke blown away by a sudden breeze. And that's when I realized something even bigger. Jenna had never really loved me. She loved the idea of me, loved having someone to worship her, loved having someone to blame when she was bored or unhappy or restless. But me? The real me? She hadn't even bothered to get to know him. I set my phone down without replying, walked to the kitchen, made coffee, took my time. For once, I wasn't rushing to fix someone else's mess. I wasn't desperate to be enough for someone who had never actually cared. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. Jenna didn't strike me as the type to give up easily, especially not when her pride was on the line. And sure enough, just as I was sipping my coffee and thinking maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a better chapter, my phone lit up again. This time it wasn't just Jenna calling. It was her best friend, and her mother, and someone I didn't even recognize. Each call coming faster, louder, more insistent. That's when I realized Jenna hadn't just made a mistake. She had a plan, and I was right at the center of it. I stared at my phone, watching the names flash across the screen like little alarms. Jenna's mom, her best friend, some random number from her area code. Something told me this wasn't just, "I'm sorry," territory anymore. Jenna was mobilizing. I let the phone ring out, placed it face down on the counter, and tried to go about my morning. Coffee, breakfast, a little music, anything to keep the growing unease at bay. But my gut kept tightening with every second. Jenna didn't like losing. She especially didn't like being ignored. And if she couldn't pull me back with guilt and apologies, she'd find another way. By noon, I had about 30 missed calls, dozens of texts, and a few voice messages, all from different people. Some were frantic, others were angry. A few even accused me of being cruel and immature for breaking her heart like this. Breaking her heart. Was that the story she was telling people? Curiosity got the better of me. I opened one of the voicemails. It was from her best friend, Ashley. "Ethan, you seriously need to grow up. Jenna is devastated. She's been crying nonstop since last night. You humiliated her. You made her pay for the entire dinner even though you know she's been struggling lately. I can't believe you would treat her like that after everything she's done for you. You need to call her. Now, fix this." I almost dropped my phone from laughing. I made her pay? I was the one who sat there alone like a fool, while Jenna stormed off without so much as a second glance. I was the one who got left holding the bill. But somehow, she had spun the whole thing around, so now I was the villain in her little fairy tale. It was classic Jenna. Always the victim. Always the one who deserved better. And if reality didn't fit the story she wanted, she'd just twist it until it did. Still, part of me hesitated. I hated drama. Hated the idea of being seen as the bad guy, even by people I barely knew. And if her friends and family were already picking up their pitchforks, how long would it be before the whole story got even messier? I debated for a few minutes whether I should just send a short text, something polite and final like, "I'm sorry you're upset. I wish you the best. Goodbye." But deep down, I knew it wouldn't end there. Jenna wasn't looking for closure. She was looking for control. And the second I cracked open that door, even a little, she would bulldoze right through it. So instead, I turned off my phone completely, set it on my nightstand, took a deep breath, and decided that today, for the first time in a long time, I was going to live my life without chasing after someone else's approval. I grabbed my jacket, locked the door behind me, and headed downtown. There was a little bookstore I liked, one of those hole-in-the-wall places that smelled like coffee and old paper. I spent hours there, flipping through novels, sipping lattes, chatting with strangers who didn't know me as Jenna's boyfriend. Just Ethan. Just me. It felt good. Better than good. It felt right. I didn't check my phone again until late evening. By then, it was practically vibrating with pin-up notifications. Missed calls, new messages, a few voicemails, and one text from a number I didn't recognize. It simply said, "You're going to regret this. I promise." No name, no signature, but I didn't need one. I knew exactly who it was from. And as I stared at that message, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Jenna wasn't done. Not even close. This wasn't just going to be messy. This was going to be war. I sat there for a long time, just staring at that text. "You're going to regret this. I promise." It wasn't even the words themselves that rattled me, it was the smug certainty behind them. Like she already had a plan in motion, and I was just too stupid to realize it yet. I could almost hear Jenna's voice in my head, dripping with condescension. She probably thought I'd panic. Maybe even call her back. begging for forgiveness, just to make the storm stop before it even started. But something in me had snapped that night at the restaurant. Not in a dramatic, throw a chair kind of way, more like a slow, final click of a door locking shut. Whatever part of me had once loved her, or even needed her, was gone, and no amount of guilt trips or threats was going to bring it back. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew Jenna wasn't the type to make idle threats. And if she couldn't get my attention by playing the victim, she'd have no problem flipping the script and trying to make me the villain. I had no idea what she was planning, but if she was willing to drag in her friends, her mom, and even random numbers I didn't recognize, it was clear she was willing to escalate. I needed to be ready. The first real sign came 2 days later. I was at work, buried in a project, when my boss knocked on my office door. He had that look, the one people get when they have to tell you something awkward, but kind of juicy. "Ethan," he said, clearing his throat. I just wanted to give you a heads up. HR got an anonymous email about you this morning." My stomach dropped. "An email?" He nodded, grimacing. "Yeah, some accusations. Nothing official yet, just enough that we have to look into it. You know the drill." I sat there, stunned, as he handed me a printed copy. There, in black and white, were a bunch of vague, ugly claims that I was emotionally unstable, harassing women at work, a danger to the workplace environment. No details, no evidence, just enough smoke to make someone wonder if there was fire. I recognized Jenna's writing style immediately, the passive-aggressive phrasing, the carefully planted seeds of doubt. She was smart enough not to outright lie about anything concrete. No names, no dates, nothing they could verify, just enough to get people whispering. It was a gut punch. Not because I was worried about losing my job. My boss knew me better than that, and HR was already treating it like the baseless nonsense it was, but because it was so calculated, so deliberate. She wasn't trying to hurt my career. She was trying to hurt me. And in a weird, twisted way, it made everything crystal clear. This wasn't about love, or heartbreak, or even bruised pride. This was about punishment. Jenna wasn't devastated. She was furious. Furious that I hadn't come crawling back. Furious that I had dared to walk away first, even if technically she had stormed out of the restaurant. In her mind, the story should have ended with me begging for her forgiveness, maybe even offering to prove myself with some grand, humiliating gesture. Instead, I had smiled, finished my meal, and gone on living my life. And that was something she couldn't forgive. I left work early that day, not because I was scared, but because I needed time to think, really think. Sitting at my desk while my phone buzzed with more anonymous numbers wasn't going to fix anything. I went for a long drive, out past the city, through winding back roads where the trees still had that soft green glow of early spring. I thought about everything, about how easily I had let someone like Jenna chip away at my confidence, my self-worth. About how many times I had made excuses for her behavior, told myself it wasn't that bad, that everyone has flaws. About how stupid I had felt, sitting alone in that restaurant, with half the dining room staring at me like I was some kind of kicked puppy. And by the time the sun started dipping low, bleeding orange into the sky, I made a decision. I wasn't going to just sit back and hope Jenna got bored and moved on. I wasn't going to wait for the next fake accusation, the next slanderous rumor, the next anonymous tip to HR. If she wanted war? Fine. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. The first thing I did when I got home was pull out my laptop. I started saving everything, every voicemail, every text, every missed call log. I took screenshots. I backed it all up to the cloud, to an external hard drive, to my private email. Then I called a friend of mine, Marcus, who just so happened to be a lawyer. Not a fancy one who wore $5,000 suits and took celebrity cases, but the kind who knew how to make people like Jenna regret ever thinking they were untouchable. We met up for coffee the next morning, and when I laid everything out for him, he just shook his head and laughed. "Man," he said, "you should have come to me sooner. You've got enough here to bury her if you want to." The thought was tempting, very tempting. But a bigger part of me didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted to build a life where someone like Jenna could never get close enough to poison it again. Still, Marcus had some advice. Good advice. Advice that would set the stage if Jenna tried to push any harder. "You don't have to fire the first shot," he said, tapping the table between us. "But you can build the fort. Make it so strong that if she tries anything else, she ends up destroying herself instead." I left that meeting feeling lighter than I had in months. Stronger. Ready. Because deep down, I knew something Jenna didn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting louder. It's smiling while the other person screams themselves hoarse. And as it turned out, Jenna was about to scream a whole lot louder than either of us expected. I spent the next week quietly building my fortress. Every evening after work, I documented everything. Every text Jenna sent, every missed call, every voicemail, even the ones that seemed innocent or apologetic. I took screenshots of mutual friends texting me with concerns that were suspiciously phrased, clearly influenced by her. I even started recording my workday interactions just in case another anonymous complaint landed on HR's desk. It felt a little crazy, sure, but Marcus assured me it was the smart move. You don't win wars by hoping your enemy plays fair. Meanwhile, Jenna's tactics escalated. First came the social media posts, vague but biting, just enough that anyone who knew us could piece it together. Some people are so fake it's almost funny, she posted one day, with a selfie of her looking heartbreakingly sad, captioned, "Betrayal hurts the most when it comes from someone you thought was different." Her friends flooded the comments with supportive messages. Some mutual friends even unfollowed me. Next, she started dropping hints that I had anger issues. Nothing direct, nothing she could get sued over, but enough to make a few people look at me sideways at work or at the gym. Jenna had always been good at this, twisting reality without ever getting her hands too dirty. But the real bomb dropped about 2 weeks later. I got served. Right there, at my apartment door. A cease and desist letter claiming I was harassing her, stalking her, and creating a hostile environment by refusing to stop contacting her. I actually laughed when I read it. I hadn't contacted Jenna once since the night she dumped me at the restaurant. Not one call, not one text, nothing. This was her trying to flip the story before I could defend myself, classic Jenna. She wanted to paint herself as the victim, frame me as some obsessed ex-boyfriend who couldn't let go. I could almost see her sitting with her mom and best friend, plotting it out like a bad soap opera. What Jenna didn't know, though, was that every attempt she had made to contact me was neatly saved, timestamped, and backed up. The screenshots alone told the real story. Jenna was the one refusing to let go. And now, with the cease and desist letter, she had handed me the final piece I needed. Marcus was practically giddy when I showed him everything. "She just made it easy," he said, flipping through the files. "We're not just defending you anymore. We're counterattacking." By the end of the week, Marcus had filed a response, a full countersuit for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. He attached everything: the texts, the call logs, the social media screenshots, the HR report proving I had been falsely accused. We didn't just ask for a retraction. We asked for damages. And because Marcus knew how Jenna operated, he also requested a restraining order, not because I needed protection, but because it sent a very clear, very public message. Jenna was the problem, not me. When she got served, it was like flipping a switch. Suddenly, the endless text stopped. The angry DMs dried up. The whispers at work faded. Even the mutual friends who had sided with her started reaching out, cautiously, like they were realizing maybe they hadn't gotten the full story after all. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. Jenna's lies were collapsing all on their own. The court date was set for 3 months out. Plenty of time for Jenna to stew. I honestly didn't even care if she showed up at that point. The evidence was so stacked against her that Marcus said we could win even if she didn't bother to defend herself. And then, about a month before the court date, the final blow came. I got a text from Ashley, Jenna's best friend, the one who had sent me that furious voicemail right after the restaurant breakup. It simply said, "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this." No other words. No explanation. No plea for forgiveness. Just that. I almost didn't believe it at first. But then I found out why. Apparently, Jenna's lies had finally caught up with her. Someone in her circle, no one would say who, had seen all the proof Marcus had compiled. Word started to spread about the fake accusations, the social media smear campaign, the way she had tried to weaponize friends and family against me. By the time our court date rolled around, Jenna didn't even show up. Her lawyer sent some weak settlement offer, basically begging us to drop the countersuit in exchange for her retracting the false claims and agreeing to a non-disparagement agreement. Marcus laughed when he read it. We rejected it. Full stop. Instead, the judge ruled in our favor by default. Jenna was ordered to pay damages, not life-ruining money, but enough to sting. Enough to remind her that actions have consequences. Enough that she would think twice before trying to destroy someone else's life just because she couldn't handle rejection. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the peace. It was waking up every morning without a pit of dread in my stomach. Walking into work without wondering who had heard what rumor. living without feeling like I had to explain myself or defend my own character. It was reclaiming my life. The last time I ever heard from Jenna was a few months later. A short email, no subject line, that simply said, "I miss you. Can we talk?" I stared at it for about a minute. Then I deleted it. No reply. No second chances. Because some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. And as I sat there, sipping my coffee and planning a trip I had been dreaming about for years, no drama, no guilt, no emotional landmines, I finally understood something Jenna never would. The best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's building a life so good, so free, so authentically yours, that it makes everything they tried to destroy look small and pitiful in comparison. And that's exactly what I did.